A couple have a row. Screaming is heard next door. The police are called and conclude that all at the address are safe and well. A story that would probably not make it onto the inside pages of a local free sheet. Yet this story dominates the front page of every national newspaper in Britain. Not just because the people having the row were the man who looks set to be our next Prime Minister and the woman who's helped mastermind his bid for power, but also because it highlights the one thing which might stop Boris Johnson fulfilling his dream: the question of character. It was a former President of the United States, John Adams, who declared that the people have a right, an indisputable, unalienable, divine right, to that most dreaded and envied kind of knowledge of the character and conduct of their rulers. In a moment we'll talk to Mr Johnson's biographer and a fellow Telegraph columnist who says the Tories would be mad to choose anybody else. First though, let's talk to our deputy political editor, John Pienaar. And John, we simply wouldn't normally know about the sort of row going on behind closed doors in someone's home. Why do we know in this case?
Well, because there was a complaint, a call to the police from a neighbour, and you can see in the tweet that was put out by Ben Wallace, the Security Minister, very sympathetic to Boris Johnson, the kind of process that will surely be going on within the Boris Johnson camp. That this was a story leaked in the end to the Guardian newspaper, left-leaning Guardian newspaper. There'll be whispers that was this candidate being targeted in this way with this incident by someone who was against them politically, maybe on the left of politics. You can hear all of that going on, not just in the Boris Johnson camp, but more widely. Again, it is also worth adding, though, isn't it? Just look at the sheer volume of these headlines, the size of these banner headlines in all of the papers. Police being called out to a domestic row involving any political prominent figure would obviously get media coverage. The headlines get bigger if the figure's a candidate for the job of Prime Minister, and they're far biggest of all if it happens to be Boris Johnson. And that's not just because an embarrassing, very personal incident in the life of the runaway front runner is so irresistible to the headline writers, including the paper that employs him, of course. It's because the question of Mr Johnson's private life and how it might or might not bear on his suitability to hold the highest political office hovers over the contest.
Hovers,
just as
John.
The choice of leader goes out to party members.
Hovers over it, as you say, but his supporters often point out that there is nothing that we don't know. We know about his infidelities, we know about his affairs, we know about his so-called, it's not a phrase I like, but love children. There's nothing we don't know about the way that Boris Johnson has been behaving. It's been out there for years. So what is new?
Well, I suppose it's not necessarily a question of what is new. It is the question of Boris Johnson's judgment and his character, decisions that he's made and how they might inform the way that he takes decisions in the future. That is now not just of immediate importance. It bears on the way the country might be run from number 10 Downing Street at such a critical point in the country's history.
Okay.
Now, as for where this goes on, though, Nick, there will be those who agree with Ben Wallace, and I don't think Jeremy Hunt is going to be picking on any of this, but this was Boris Johnson, huge character, unlike any we've seen. And I think the fact that Boris Johnson and his team have been so careful in the interviews, the hustings they're prepared to do, that will just increase the media's appetite to get as up close and personal as possible.
John Pienaar, thank you very much indeed. We're joined now by Sonia Pennell.